I did want to talk about Bryan Danielson and Jeff Jarrett. They're having the match tonight. I'm very excited for it. Some people are. Some people are going 55-year-old Jeff Jarrett. Okay. Am I really going to get into this? I wanted to tell you about what I know about those guys. And I am certainly more, it's not closer. I am closer with Jeff. I've known Jeff for longer. I never had a regular relationship with Bryan Danielson because it just didn't happen that way. I'll start with him though. First of all, I will say that I've always been a fan of him. I was a fan of him as an indie wrestler in Ring of Honor. I followed his career. I was so pleasantly surprised when he popped up on the game show NXT. And I remember at the time, and that was season 1, I remember at the time, not knowing, I think, anybody else on the show. Like, I wasn't that tuned in with FCW. It wasn't as widely available. When NXT even started, it was on Hulu. Or NXT when it became more of an actual wrestling show and not the game show, and became the developmental show. It was on Hulu, and I'd heard rumblings about it. But in terms of NXT the game show, which replaced ECW, as people know, seeing Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan as they called him, I was excited for that. And who's Wade Barrett? Well, he jumped off the page right away when they put him with Jericho, and that was cool to see. And, Otunga and Justin Gabriel. And I remember seeing, Michael Tarver and all those guys. And, but I knew Danielson. And I remember they put him with The Miz, and I was like, oh, what the hell are they doing here? And then as I looked back on it later, it was such the right call. Because you had a guy who did the grind of the professional wrestling grind, because I don't want to take anything away from Miz. But that's the story, right? Danielson wrestled everywhere. He wrestled in England. He wrestled all over Europe. He wrestled in Japan. He wrestled in Canada, America, Mexico. He is the prototypical hardworking indie wrestler who made it. That was the story they were trying to tell with him. And you had Miz, who was reality TV show guy, and, really didn't work the indies, although he kind of did. But that wasn't the story. And, got on Tough Enough and, came out of Tough Enough and got thrown out of the locker room. And, no one liked Miz because of the way he came up. Miz busted his ass in a very different way. So you had polar opposites. And at the time, I was like, this is dumb. Why would they put Danielson with this guy? They changed his name. I was one of those fans. And you think back on it now, it's like, no, it's perfect. They're foils. They're opposites. Why would he listen to Miz? It made sense. It made all the sense in the world. It was good television. You don't have two guys that were similar. No. Now, having Bryan lose all those matches and then get eliminated, I didn't think that made sense. In the big picture, did it make sense? No. Did it matter? No. He was coming back with Nexus anyway. Then he got fired and went back on the indies and all that stuff. But when I interviewed him a handful of times in WWE, super nice. I always knew he was a guy who knew at that point, and I didn't start interviewing. I started there in September 2019. So at that point, we're years past WrestleMania 30. We're 5 years past his crowning achievement at WrestleMania 30. He's already a made guy. He's established all that stuff, and it was great to see him back in the ring. And but he was always a fun interview. He was insightful. He knew how to talk in and out of character. He knew what that meant. I specifically remember when he was doing stuff, and man, this is such pandemic stuff. If you remember, he was like training with Gulak and Otis. He's like lifting Otis up from behind and all that. And he was taking training from Gulak. And it was funny because who the hell was Gulak in terms of his resume to Bryan Danielson? And they had that match, I remember, in Philadelphia, that was it. That was COVID takes everything down 4 days later. But, it was cool to see it happen. But Danielson's taking pointers from a guy who doesn't have the career that he does. But those three were good television. They had that ring set up in the back where they would cut promos and all that. That was the Thunderdome and the PC stuff. And it was funny. And we had like a mixed, interview one day where like Danielson was on and then Gulak was on with Dan. And Gulak comes on with a headset that had a Bluetooth, and he is on the top of a parking garage outside in gear. He's wearing a jacket. He's in his gear, and him and Danielson are talking, and he's like working out during the interview. And he's standing probably 20 feet away from the camera. So you get a full body shot. It's very funny, and I appreciate it. I could tell that Bryan really enjoyed that. Like, it was very obvious how much he was having fun with that. And I think he knew, like, oh, this is ridiculous. And obviously he's gone, a year and a half later. So I interviewed him a few times, and he was always really good, and I really enjoyed him. But that night, this is one of my favorite things, the night that he wrestled Drew Gulak in Philly, and obviously both had ties to Philly and Danielson and Ring of Honor and all that stuff, I was doing watch-along. I was in the arena. And I had only been with the company for 5 months at that point. And I walk in, and I'm wearing like, I don't know, a black jacket and gray jeans. And he sees me, and I walk in, and he goes, has anyone ever told you like Orange Cassidy? And I said, it has come up before. And there's a famous, damn it. Let me see if I can send it to you, Dom. I won't be able to find this. We'll put it up on social after. Follow us on Wrestling Mat 23. Someone once quote tweeted one of my NXT injury reports saying, when did Orange Cassidy start doing the NXT injury report or working for WWE? And I look similar-ish. Yes, my hair changed color from yesterday to today because it's life. You do that kind of stuff. But I wasn't wearing denim or anything. But Danielson said that to me, and I laughed. And I was like, yeah, it's been brought up before. He's like, oh, no, you definitely kind of look like that guy. And he laughed, and that was it. Like, that was probably one of our only, direct interactions we had with each other. And about 10 minutes later, I see Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona. And he's like, you look like Orange Cassidy? I was like, what? He's like, you should be the heel version. I was like, what are you even talking about? He's like, you should just wear like all black denim. You kind of had like the salt and pepper hair. And my hair was in no different like color. Like it was natural. Or I was doing some bad color job with it. I'm a natural ginger. He's a bit more blonde than me as a natural. But he's like, oh, you should totally wear black denim, and you got the salt and pepper hair kind of thing going on the side, so you could be like a heel Orange Cassidy. And I laughed, and I was like, I'm a commentator, but I'm there for 5 months. I'm just laughing at that. And my daughter thinks I kind of look like him. I've never worn the full denim, but And a big fan. And I think I've said recently, I got to meet him once amongst friends, and Jim's a great dude. Everyone likes him. And certainly happy for his success. I was at an indie show years ago when he didn't wear the tighter jeans. It was kind of rip stuff. And he used to get the orange juice out of the corner. And it would, he would drink it to get him out of the malaise. He used to play up the malaise stuff a lot more. Adjusting, evolving over time, it's a smart thing to do. But he used to pull the orange juice out of the corner, and then he'd have a small bottle of like not ocean spray, Tropicana, and he'd get it from like a convenience store. And it was this big, and he'd drink that, and that would wake him up. But Danielson was always cool. Interviewed him multiple times. I loved being able to watch him and follow his career. I was happy to see his comeback. All of it was great. Really, really good. Yes, Moby approved. God, what an inside joke. Was it Moby's Cribs, Rob? Was that what it was? Moby's Cribs. I think that was it. Why we found out that Moby liked orange juice. But I wish I got to talk to Danielson more. My only connection with him, by the way, is that we both hosted Talking Smack. And I'm well aware that his version with Renee is the standard and will never be topped. I loved him so much in that show. There is such a I don't give a fuck attitude to him And when he was doing that show and he was out of the ring and retired at the time and the great promo with Miz and all, he definitely got to a point where he knew like, I can kind of get away with this. And I love that about him. Very much knowing his place. I will highly recommend, I don't know where Colt has it, Bryan on The Art of Wrestling during not quite top world title status, but certainly established status. Go find that interview where he basically just goes, don't worry about buying my stuff. Please go buy sustainable cotton or whatever the hell it was. And Colt's like, you need to sell your shirts on WWE Shop. What are you doing right now? I very much like that. To be fair, you weren't trying to get fired when you were hosting the show. No, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Jesus Christ. Him and Renee just had it. And then they did the stuff with Tout. And there was the thing where I think they were like, no, don't talk about Tout, that failed social media thing we did. And we're going to reveal that Chad Gable's my son. Oh God, it was so good. So good. He's very funny. He's much more of a shit stirrer than you realize because he's very comfortable in a spot. And like I said, he's comfortable in his life and beautiful wife and kids. And that's what matters to him now. He's great at being a shit stirrer, like in the best way possible. It's never mean. And he loves wrestling in a different way than I think others do. And, when the guy said, yeah, I was kind of bored and wasn't excited about wrestling Roman and Edge at WrestleMania. Like that shows you, maybe that's a different answer. Maybe it's a different mindset if he's not the guy who wrestled at WrestleMania 30, but 7 years later, he's back in the main event because he kind of forced his way in because nobody really cared as much about Edge and Roman. And he's like, And then he put Roman over again, by the way, and did a hell of a job doing so. And he was gone. Now he's in AEW. And it certainly feels like he's calling his shots. And yeah, Punk, I agree. Roman Bryan had some very special chemistry. I'm going to guess we never get to see it again, but those two guys clicked. And I'll tell you what Bryan Danielson is very good at. Hiding the fact he's going to lose. I talked about Boo Boo Face recently on Busted Open. You never knew the outcome of Danielson's matches, win or lose. And he worked his ass off, even when it wasn't his night. Even when the crowd was behind him. And maybe it should have been his night, or should have been his turn. Before, during, or after his big runs or his top runs. You never knew. That's how good he was. That's why he's the best. Best is a relative term, but on the right day, if you ask me, I might say he's my best. He's my favorite. And that might be a better answer I give 5-10 years down the road. Just because, and I saw somebody brought up the discourse, and I saw Conrad talking about Cody yesterday, and I think he made a lot of good points. I'm not saying I agree with a lot of what he does or how he conducts himself, but I thought he made a lot of fair points. He's also friends with Cody, so take that for what you will. But there are different parameters to who is the best wrestler or the biggest draw or what, and merch does go a long way. Bryan Danielson checks a lot of those boxes. And I will say this, he didn't always check a lot of those boxes. You might say he had to fight his way through to get to the top in WWE, but he became a better all-around performer there. He did. You have to raise your game, not because it's a bigger place, but because you're playing to a different audience. You have to hone your game. You have to evolve your game. Danielson was always good at that. Always, always, always. Wanted to try things. Was out of the box. The idea of, like he talked about, I want to go put my hair on the line in Mexico against Mystico. Not Mystico. I know. Blue, if someone will say it to me. If Tom's here, he'll say it. He wanted to put his hair on the line, though. He wanted to go wrestle there. Like, he had different goals. And Blue Panther. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. I think that's who it was. The Blue Panther? Yes. Blue Demon. Now everybody's saying different ones. We'll figure it out. But the idea of, I want to grow my hair out so I can go put it on the line in Mexico. He wanted to do that in WWE. They're never going to let him do that. Maybe it's a different story today. See, like, I think if he retires, and whether it's in 3 weeks or in 3 months or whatever, and let's say for whatever reason, he's at AEW. Okay? He's done. Because he did say my wrestling contract expired. I don't know. It's been brought up. He's helping with creative. He's on the disciplinary committee, whatever it might be, right? By the way, it was Blue Panther, so good call by Chris. But let's say his commitments to AEW are done. I absolutely think he would be welcomed back with open arms in WWE. I don't think anybody has any ill will towards him, and he could play a variety of roles. I don't know if he wants to. I think he wants to go home to his kids and his wife and be around for them as much as he can, and maybe more so than he can be now, and I get that. But he should go into every Hall of Fame possible. He should be able to do whatever he wants on his way out, and I'll tell you why. Because he has done so much for others, even when it hasn't been their time, and it might be his time. Sure, frustration will get to you on how you're handled, but I don't think necessarily frustration always got to him. I think sometimes it's boredom. A lot of people go, oh, that guy should have a belt. They should push him. That doesn't always matter. Does it matter that Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga have the tag titles right now? Does it matter? Do you go, oh, Tama Tonga, well, now it's part of a group. Tag team wrestling isn't anything in WWE. They had a hell of a tag match last night. We'll get to that in NXT in a little bit, but you need to be personally and creatively fulfilled. Titles don't do that. Sometimes it does. If it's done correctly, if creative's going in the right direction, sure. But people have been champions before, and it doesn't mean that much. DNC Digital, we see your super chat. I don't want to interrupt the conversation, but I will absolutely get to that. So, Dom, hang on with that. Let's put it in our start, and we'll get to that. I just don't want to interrupt the flow here, but it's a very good question. Danielson wants to be fulfilled in life, in his work. And I understand that. I completely understand that. And I mean, as I've said, I think he's certainly financially well off, and he lives a different lifestyle than most, and that's going to work. But I enjoyed getting to work with him. I enjoy still getting to watch him. I enjoyed seeing him in a variety of different roles between WWE and AEW, and him get to do more of maybe what he wants now. And, people are into this because they love that guy. And I hope that he's getting to do everything he wants all the way until he doesn't want to do it anymore. He's earned that. And I guarantee you he will go out on his back whenever that is. I would almost guess that even if they want to put him over at the end, he will go, no. That's not the way this works. I don't need this win to end my career. And honestly, for someone like that, I don't think that's how his career trajectory would go. Undertaker can end on a win. I get that. Stone Cold can end on a win. I get that. Bryan Danielson should go out on his back because he's going to make whoever that is in that last match, maybe it's Swerve, maybe it's somebody else, that's going to be part of someone's legacy. Hey, this is Matt Camp. Thanks for checking out one of our recent clips from the Wrestling Mat. Why is someone so close to The Rock kind of throwing Cody under the bus?
Yeah, a lot of people won't engage with Jim Cornette. I did, just because I have a mark for Jim Cornette.
Please subscribe right now. Hit the like and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And I think you should listen to your TV partners. Let me tell you about WWE and a little insight. More subscribers means more content. And make sure you follow us on social media at WrestlingMat23 on both Twitter and Instagram.